What is up, JDs and Littlemen? Today, we're going to be talking about a busted Warlock build that I have been using for the past week. In particular, this build is really great because it uses one grenade to get 2 grenades. And if that doesn't really make sense yet, we'll kind of explain it here. Now, with the way I've set this build up, you're going to be getting grenade energy super quickly. You're going to get your melees back super quickly. And you're always going to have a ton of transcendence energy, which means you can pop transcendence pretty much all the time. So this is a really good build for higher level content, but it is also really great for on level content. Things like strikes, nightfalls, stuff like that. The reason that this build is so great is because it has a lot of ad control. Now with this build, we're going to be getting 2 grenades for every grenade that we use. And if that doesn't make sense, I'll kind of start explaining here in just a second. And like I said, you're going to be getting grenade energy back really often, especially with some of our armor mods that we're going to be putting on just a little bit later. But first thing I want to get into is our exotic. The exotic that we're going to be using is Getaway Artist. Now, you may be thinking, yeah, I've definitely seen this build before. I promise you haven't seen it in this capacity. Now, if we look at our subclass stuff, first thing would be our super. I'm electing to go Cataclysm Nova Bomb because the other options aren't that great. If you're good with Needle Storm and you can hit your shots, that's a route you can go. But the only other one that I would recommend other than Nova Bomb would be Song of Flame. But the problem with Song of Flame is that it takes away our ability to use one of our aspects that we're going to talk about later. Now, Bleak Watcher says, hold to convert your grenade into a stasis turret that fires slowing projectiles at nearby targets. Now, what it doesn't tell you is that it will eventually freeze pretty much anything in its surrounding, and it lasts for quite a while. Our next one is going to be Feed the Void, and I already know what you're thinking. Why are we not using Helion? That literally doesn't make any sense. Just hear me out real quick. Yes, we could have Helion, and that would make it so that we're constantly proccing Bleak Watcher, the Arc Grenade, and Helion all within about a second. And yes, it puts out some damage. However, I believe that Feed the Void far outweighs the benefits of Helion. Now, Feed the Void says, defeat a target with any ability to activate Devour. Your Devour effects are improved, restoring additional health and grenade energy. This is important for later. Next, for our grenade, we're going to be using Storm Grenade. The reason we're using it is simply just because it's the only one that's compatible with Getaway Artist. Yeah, so for our melee, we're going to be using Arcane Needle. You could run Penumbral Blast. Really, this is just personal opinion, but Arcane Needle gives you 3 charges, which just has more overall uptime. Next, we're going to be using Phoenix Dive, and this is important because we want to have a really fast base cooldown, and also it's going to heal us at the same time, so win-win. For our fragments, we're going to be using Facet of Protection, which states, while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While Transcendent, the effect is increased, and it also gives us a nice little bump to our strength stat. Next, we're going to be using Facet of Purpose, which says picking up an orb of power grants either Amplified, Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or Overshield. And because I'm using Nova Bomb, this is going to give me Overshield every single time that we pick up an orb, which is going to be really easy when we get into our weapons in just a moment. For our third fragment, we're going to be using Facet of Courage. Your Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs, and it also gives us a nice little discipline buff to our stats. So every time that a target is hit with the Bleak Watcher turret, and you hit some enemies with your Arc Soul, it's going to do a lot more damage. And also it gives us a nice little bump to our discipline stat. Next, we're going to be using Facet of Command. Now, this did just get a buff. It now has, I think, an 8-second cooldown. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong here, but what it says is freezing or suppressing a target reloads your equipped weapons and increases weapon stability, aim assist, and airborne effectiveness. Defeating frozen or suppressed targets creates a stasis or void breach. Now, even though this isn't going to proc as often as it did before today's update, it is still going to be very useful in our overall kit. And then finally, our last facet, it's going to be Facet of Ruin, which says increases the size and damage of the burst when you shatter a stasis crystal or frozen target, and increases the area of effective solar ignitions. That last part is only useful if you're running something with incandescent or, something like that. But mainly we're just going to be using it because every time we freeze a target, it's going to deal more damage and give more shatter damage. Next, for our weapons, I'm using Kvostov simply because not only is it a really good primary, but it also has shoot to loot. And this is going to be really important for every time that we pick up an orb of power, because we can do it from halfway across the map with this. Really, any weapon with shoot to loot is going to be okay, but I like using Kvostov. Fight me. The other two options are really just dealer's choice. Personally, I'm running Null Composure and Commemoration, but if you're running this in like a GM or something like that, obviously, you know, change your weapons up. But obviously, change up your weapons for the surges and champions, you know, and whatever content you're running. Next, we're going to be talking about our mods. So on our helmet, because I'm running Kvostov, I'm running Kinetic Siphon. And then I've got Heavy Ammo Finder and Heavy Ammo Scout just to kind of supplement that extra heavy ammo. Then on our Getaway Artist, I'm running Momentum Transfer, Grenade Kickstart, and Bolstering Detonation. So every time that our Bleak Watcher hits something, not only are we going to get some melee cooldown, but we're also going to be getting some class ability energy, which is going to kind of help feed in with the rest of the mods in just a moment. I am personally using Grenade Kickstart, but if you really want to run surges and not run Grenade Kickstart, that's totally up to you. Just know you're not going to have as much grenade uptime. Next, on our chest armor, this is, again, dealer's choice, but if you want to run something like Charged Up, you're more than welcome to get more grenade energy. However, I like running resistances, and I just change them depending on the content that I'm running. Next, for our leg armor, I'm running Better Already. That's going to give us some regeneration every time that we pick up an orb. And if you remember, every time that we pick up an orb, we also get an overshield. Next, I'm running Orbs of Restoration. Picking up an orb grants a small amount of energy to your ability with the least amount of energy. And kind of the same thing applies with Absolution. It reduces all ability cooldowns every time that we pick up an orb of power, just to kind of help feed in some extra ability energy. And finally, probably the most important is our class item. I'm running a single stack of Reaper. Every time that we use our Phoenix Dive, we're going to create an orb of power the next time we get a kill. Next is Bomber, reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. So every time that we use that, not only are we going to get an orb for every time that we use our class ability, we're also going to be reducing our grenade cooldown a little bit, which then originally feeds back into our grenade kickstart. And then finally, I'm just running a powerful attraction. Nothing too fancy here. If there happens to be an orb that we haven't shot with Kvostov yet, we'll just pick it up this way. Now, finally, there are some things that are useful in the artifacts, although it's not necessary. Things like Shield Crush is going to be pretty good. Radiant Orbs is going to give you some extra damage. And Threaded Blast is going to give you a little bit more damage with a larger explosion every time that we shoot a Tangle. That's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you liked, hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.